يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي.
Consider this beautiful painting of nature. If I told you that some ink randomly fell onto the paper and made it by chance, how crazy would you think I was?
Well, probably a little bit crazy because we know that paintings require painters. This is probably going to be this design argument, essentially that things look super complex and therefore needs a designer. But with paintings, the reason why we know that paintings look that way is because we know that paintings have a painter. If your analogy is essentially super complicated things that look designed and need a designer, then wouldn't God, this super complicated thing, also need a designer? If not, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't this infinitely complex being need a designer that's more complex?
You would instantly deny this and tell me that a painter designed it. If something like a painting must have a designer, how about something far more complex like the universe?
If your argument is essentially that super complex things need a more complex designer, then wouldn't God be more complex than the design that he designed? And wouldn't he need a designer as well because he's super complex? And doesn't it go infinitely into the past? If not, then why not?
Just like the painter used different colours and techniques to draw the painting, the universe is also finely tuned to perfection by many fundamentals. If the painter made a small mistake, it would ruin the painting. Similarly, if the fine-tuning of the universe were to change even by the smallest amount, it would no longer exist.
The problem is you can literally replace this argument for anything that exists in the universe. Say a black hole that, would murder you and rip you to shreds. If the universe was tweaked just a tiny little bit, then black holes wouldn't exist. So the universe is finely tuned for black holes. Why is life so important and not, say, black holes, or not anything in the universe? This argument would work for literally anything in the universe. How can we conclude that it's specific for life?
Just like it is almost impossible to accidentally produce this painting, the odds are almost infinitely more impossible for the universe to accidentally come into existence.
No one is saying that the universe came accidentally. Saying the universe came accidentally requires intent, that somebody intended it to be one way, but it accidentally was the other way. Now, what we're saying is that it probably, one explanation at least, is that it always existed in one form or another. Why is that so unreasonable? I mean, we have the laws of conservation of matter and energy saying that matter can't be created or destroyed. So it's possible that all this stuff existed in one form or another.
Allah challenges our intellect in a profound verse in the Quran. He says, "Were they created by nothing, or were they the creators of themselves, or were they the creators of the heavens and the earth? Rather, they are not certain." Firstly, Allah asks, were they created by nothing? If you think about it, you will quickly realize that this is impossible, as you cannot create something from nothing. Now apply this logic to the universe as a whole.
But being an atheist doesn't necessarily mean you have to believe that something can come from nothing. That's not actually a position. Even if something couldn't come from nothing, that wouldn't necessarily prove that your God is real. The universe could have been eternal, there could have been a multiverse, could have come from black holes. We just don't know. We have no idea. And pretending like we do is, ignorant.
Then Allah asks, were they the creators of themselves? For you to create yourself, you have to already exist before you were born to create yourself, which is also impossible. Now apply this same logic to the universe. Since the universe has a beginning, it could not have created itself.
How do you know that the universe has a beginning? The Big Bang? Well, the Big Bang doesn't prove that. The Big Bang just proves that it was infinitesimally small at one point. It expanded from that. There are several models like the multiverse or string theory or the ekpyrotic universe that propose an eternal universe. Now, I don't know personally if any of those are true because I'm not a physicist, but to pretend like the consensus is the universe had an absolute origin is just laughable because we just don't know. We don't know what happened before the Big Bang. We can't prove anything happened before then. Hell, it might not even be a good, valid question to ask what happened before it. We just don't know. So this is an argument from ignorance. We don't know, therefore, God did it. And not just God, right? Specifically the Islamic God. Not the Christian God, not the Jewish God, not the Aunt Jemima in the sky. No, specifically the Islamic God.
Finally, Allah concludes by saying, "Or were they the creators of the heavens and the earth?" 2 points. Firstly, the universe existed billions of years before us, and to create something that existed before we were even born is impossible.
Congratulations on arguing a point that literally nobody has ever made. Except for Muslims who have strawmanned people. Good.
Secondly, the universe is far, far greater than us. Look at the most impressive human inventions and you'll find that they're nothing compared to even a fly. Human creation is always prone to mistakes and needs teams of maintenance and support in case of breakages or errors. If something as trivial as software needs maintenance, who then is maintaining the universe?
If God is perfectly good, why would he need to maintain the universe? Wouldn't the universe just be perfect because he's perfectly good and he's perfectly powerful? All-powerful and perfectly good? I think this argument actually sort of defeats your God. Why wouldn't it be perfect if God is perfect and he's all perfectly good?
From this verse alone, Allah shows us that we could not have come from nothing, we could not have created ourselves, and we cannot create anything as incredible as the universe. So how then do we think we are intelligent enough to deny the existence of a creator? Okay, you might now be thinking, if God created the universe, who created God? Firstly, to say that God has a beginning or is created, by definition means this being can no longer be a God. But for argument's sake, let's say that the universe was created by something that is created. The next logical question is, what created that thing? And you can ask that question again and again, an infinite amount of times, and the only way to break this chain is to say that creation was created by an uncreated creator.
But why? Why is that the only answer? Couldn't the answer be the universe itself wasn't created? Why can't the universe itself be uncreated? That's not the only answer.
Secondly, time is a property of the universe. Since the universe has a beginning, we use time to describe what happened from that point. Since Allah is the creator of the universe and time, it does not mean he is restricted by these laws. Hopefully, we should arrive at the rational conclusion that the universe is created and maintained by an uncreated creator.
But why does the creator need to be uncreated? Why can't the universe itself be uncreated? Who's to say that this creator that you're proposing necessarily needs to be uncreated? It seems like you're using special pleading, giving a special exception to your God.
Generally, there's one person in charge. There's one captain of a ship and one king of a country. Imagine you're driving a car and both you and the person next to you have a steering wheel. Either you agree which way to turn, which shows you are both dependent on each other, or you try and turn left and the other tries turning right and one of you overpowers the other. Now apply this logic to God. If there was more than one God, then these gods cannot be all-powerful for the same reasons, and a god that is not all-powerful, by definition, cannot be a god.
So you're saying that your God has to be all-powerful. Okay. Could God create a rock so heavy that even he himself cannot lift it? If your answer is yes, then he wouldn't be able to lift the rock and wouldn't be all-powerful. And if your answer is no, then he wouldn't be able to create the rock and be all-powerful. So, if your God, one of your characteristics of God is all-powerful, then that means that this God is logically incoherent. And to your point of only one person being in charge of a country, there are actually examples like the United States where you have actually several people basically being in charge of a country. You have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. So this idea that there's only one leader of a country is a little bit laughable too, because we have real-world examples of countries having several leaders that share power with each other.
Just imagine if there were two kings running a country. There would be chaos, and amazingly, Allah directly addresses this in the Quran. He says, "Had there been other gods besides Allah, they both would have been destroyed." In Islam, one of Allah's names is Al-Qahhar, the one that overpowers. He doesn't answer to anything or anyone, and his will is imposing. The biggest proof that there is only one God is the fact that there is balance in the universe. The laws of physics are consistent, the sky is always blue, and gravity is always the same.
I don't think there's really any principle that says the laws of physics are always consistent. Where's the evidence for that?
At this point, you might believe in God, but have a problem following organised religion. I mean, why should you be restricted to a specific way of life, right? But if you really think about it, you already are living your life in a specific way according to the laws of your country.
Yeah, but those laws are secular. I don't know about you, but I live in the good old U.S. of America. And in America, we have a secular country that has a separation between church and state, proving that you don't need a God to have laws in a country. So, yeah.
Imagine if your country had no law. Life would be terrifying and everyone would be so lost. This shows us that we need direction.
Yeah, but does that direction have to come from Islam? I mean, according to the Institute of Economics and Peace, 15 conflicts out of 30 have been motivated by the religion of Islam. 21 out of 35 armed conflicts were motivated by religion. And religious identity was not correlated with peace. 20 of the least religious countries had lower global peace index numbers, while 20 of the most had some of the highest. In the Journal of Sociological Research, in terms of scientists, out of a survey about 2,000, a survey of 22,000 scientists, 16% of scientists in France are religious, 39% in Hong Kong are religious, 27% in the UK are religious, and 30% in America are religious. Meaning that scientists had lower levels of religion on average than the general population. According to Gallup, most religious countries had below $5,000 per capita of income, and some of the least religious had above $25,000 per capita. 52% of countries that had $25,000 per capita, said religion is not important. In poverty/religious affiliation from 1970 to 2010, unaffiliated populations had greater reductions in poverty. And unaffiliated people had the lowest levels of poverty, along with Jewish people. So atheistic societies actually have more intelligence, just as much peace, if not a little bit more, and higher levels of income per capita, while religious countries are more poor with lower levels of income per capita. So, if atheism doesn't make a country more or less peaceful, and secular countries have higher levels of scientists and income than religious countries, then that sort of proves that societies don't collapse if you get rid of religion. It doesn't mean religion or irreligion causes the societies to collapse, or that religion or that irreligion causes it to be more peaceful and prosperous. But it does show that you don't need religion in order to have a peaceful and prosperous society. Whereas religion doesn't prevent societies from becoming poor, violent, and oppressive.
Not only that, but every country has slightly different laws that are constantly changing over time, which also shows us that we as humans cannot decide what is 100% right or wrong. So if we need direction, but cannot decide what is objectively right or wrong, we have a problem. Where do we get the right direction from?
Society, laws, the idea that, hey, if I don't want to get punched in the face, I am not going to punch someone else in the face either. Empathy, compassion for others. None of these things that I just mentioned require a God whatsoever. And yes, we can't 100% prove that something is right or wrong, because morality is ultimately subjective. But the way I view it is that if I don't want to get hit in the face, I don't hit anybody else in the face too. I live my life, you live yours, as long as we're not hurting anybody else. Basically. Obviously it gets more complicated than that, but basically.
Imagine if I gave you a car and you'd never seen one before. Guessing what to put in the fuel tank and what buttons to press is not good enough, but referring to the instruction manual provided by the manufacturer, we will know exactly how to drive the car. In the exact same way, if I want to know why am I here, where am I going, what is my purpose, I must refer to the revelation provided by the Creator.
But why should we take it seriously from a book that says the earth was created in 6 days, per Quran 7:54, and a book that says semen comes from between the backbone of the ribs, per Quran 86:6-7? This is the book that you think we should get our direction from? Really? Why? Why would this book have so many errors? And why would we need to get our direction from this book that contains so many obvious pseudoscientific garbage errors?
How? The answer is the Quran.
So Islam is self-evident because of a book that says the earth was created in 6 days, semen comes from between the backbone and the ribs, and contradicts itself multiple times. What?
We've all heard about Moses splitting the sea and Jesus being born a miraculous birth, but these miracles are all limited to the time and place in which they happen. The Quran, on the other hand, is a special miracle that was given to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and is not limited to time or place.
It absolutely is. The earliest Quranic manuscripts we have are from the University of Birmingham. The Quranic manuscripts are dated between 568 and 645 using radiocarbon dating. So, No, they are limited to time and place. They're found in Arabia around the years 568 through 645.
It is a miracle that me and you can pick up, study, and experience anywhere, anytime. You can never prove that the splitting of the sea actually took place, but the Quran can be proved to be from God.
How?
It is a book like no other book, a speech like no other speech, and this can be shown in so many ways. For example, Allah predicted its preservation from the beginning. More than 1,400 years have passed, and the Quran remains in its original language completely unchanged.
Even if this is the case, this doesn't make your side look good. It makes it look bad because you're saying that it can't be changed at all. Science constantly changes when we learn new information. But you're saying because it hasn't been changed at all and it's the same as it was like 14,000 years ago, that we should take it seriously? This is a good reason to not take it seriously because it's not really subject to updating. This is even more amplified with all the pseudoscience in the Quran.
Since Muslims claim the Quran is the direct word of God, any changes, even if it was a single letter, would instantly falsify this claim. Allah challenges the reader to look for contradictions if they think the Quran is man-made. What we find is that the message is 100% consistent with absolutely no contradictions.
Absolutely no contradictions. Let's go through some of them, shall we? In Quran 96, 1 through 2, it says, "Read in the name of the Lord who created man from a clot." But in Quran 21, in Quran 21:30, it says, quote, "Do disbelievers not see that the heavens and the earth were one mass, and we tore them apart, and we made from water every living thing? Will they not believe?" Oh, it gets even better. In Quran 30 verses 20, let me pull that up real quick. It says, "And of his signs that he created you from dust, and behold, you become humans spreading out." So it says man was created by a blood clot, water, and dust. Those are clear contradictions. In addition to that, the Quran also has contradictions on how long the earth was created. For example, in Quran 7, verses 54, it says, "The Lord is your God, he who created the heavens and earth in 6 days, then established himself on the throne. Night overtakes the day as it pursues it persistently, and the sun and the moon and the stars subservient by his command. His is the creation, and his is the command. Blessed is the Lord, Lord of all beings." But in Quran 41, verses 9 through 12, it says, "Say, do you reject me, O who created the earth in 2 days?" 41 verses 9 says it was created in 2 days. So here we have a couple of contradictions. Now your claim was that there are absolutely no contradictions in the Quran. But as we have just shown, that claim is absolute bullshit. We just found 2.
Allah also told us that He would make the Quran easy to learn. Today, millions of people around the world have the Quran stored in memory. Every single generation since the Quran was revealed has had memorizers, making it the only book in history to have passed down in both human memory and written form.
Even if this was the only book in history passed down through written form and memory, that doesn't make it true.
If all books were to just disappear, the only one that would be back in a day is the Quran. Amazingly, Allah told us that when people listen to the Quran being recited, they are impacted and you see them start to cry. Thanks to YouTube, we can see this happening with our own eyes. You see people who aren't even Muslim and don't even understand the language breaking down into tears. Even those who recite occasionally cry. What other speech can do this?
The I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King.
Linguistically speaking, the Quran remains the best Arabic literature to date. Since Arabic is arguably the most eloquent language to ever exist, this makes the Quran the most eloquent speech in the most eloquent language in history.
That's an opinion. I could just as easily say English is the most eloquent language in history. What makes Arabic the most eloquent? And how are you determining what makes something more or less eloquent than another thing?
The language of the Quran alone is enough to prove that it could not have come from man.
Are you fucking kidding me? That is the reason why it could come from man. It's written in Arabic, which wasn't even the first language. How the fuck does that prove that it couldn't come from man? It wasn't even the first form of writing. That was Mesopotamian cuneiform, around 3100 BCE.
To add to this, the Quran is also jam-packed full of scientific and historical accuracies that were impossible to have been known 14 centuries ago. From the Big Bang to the expansion of the universe and to every living thing being made from water. From the two seas that meet but don't mix to the accurate description of the human embryo. In fact, there are more than 1,000 scientific verses in the book, and not a single one of them can be disproved by established science.
Now, you said that Quran 21 verses 31, chapter 21 verse 31 says every living thing is made out of water and it proves that the Big Bang happened, but it doesn't say anything like that. What it actually says is, and we placed on earth stabilizers, lest it sway with them, and we placed signposts and passages that they may be guided. How the fuck does that say anything about the Big Bang and man being made out of water? So the merging the two seas thing, it does say that. It says Quran 25:57, and it is he who merged the two seas. This one is fresh and sweet, and that one is salty and bitter, and he placed them between a barrier, an impossible boundary. So, okay, pass. I'll give you a pass on that one. Your next claim is that it has an accurate description of embryology. Are you fucking kidding me? So Quran 23:12-14 is the verse they cited. He said, we created man from an extract of clay. What? Then we made him a seed in a secure repository. Then we developed the seed into a clot. Then we developed a clot into the lump. Then we developed the lump into bones, and the bones into flesh. Then we produced it into another creature. Most blessed is God, the best of all creatures. That is not how embryology works at all. What? And you said also that there's not a single verse that can be disproven by science. Ladies and gentlemen, let me produce you, well, first off, all those verses. Quran 86, 5, 6 through, verses 5, 6 through 7. It says, quote, 5, let man consider what he was created from. Quran 86, verses 6, he was created by a gushing liquid. Quran 86 through 7, issuing from the backbone and the breastbone. Do you know what that means? That means that they're saying that semen comes from between the backbone and the ribs. What? How is that scientifically accurate at all? Here's the answer. It's not. So there, your argument is refuted. Fucking easy as pie.
For those who are spiritual, it magnifies our spirituality. For those who are intellectual, it challenges our rationality. And the Quran, by far, is the most popular book in the world that is read billions of times every single day, week in, week out, all year round.
According to the Guinness Book of World Records, it's actually the Bible. But even if it was the most popular, it's a fallacy known as the argumentum ad populum fallacy. You're arguing that just because the position is popular necessarily makes it true. But just because something is popular doesn't make it true. I mean, if 100 people, if 100% of the people on Earth believed the Earth was flat, it wouldn't make it flat. So, even if what you're saying is true, which it's not, but even if it was, it's not evidence for Islam.
For these reasons, Muslims can proudly claim that the Quran is self-evident to be entirely from God. If you are still skeptical, pick up a Quran and read it for yourself.
I did, and it is fucking bullshit.
Imagine an African child that lived 12 years in poverty and then died of starvation. Now compare this boy to a 70-year-old drug dealer that had all the money, all the cars and everything he wanted, and then he also died of old age. One lived a short, miserable and difficult life, and the other lived in luxury whilst causing harm to society. Now, they are simply a collection of bones 6 feet under the ground. If there was no life after death, how unfair and depressing would that be?
Yeah, probably pretty unfair and depressing, I would say. But, it doesn't prove that there's an afterlife. Sorry, dude, but life is pain, and life is horrible, and it sucks. And it sucks that a child who's starving, will have to live like that, where as like rich oil executives, for example, who fuck up the planet on a daily basis, will, live luxurious lifestyles. It sucks, but it's just how it is.
The world is full of injustice. People get away with so much evil, and innocents get blamed for things they didn't do.
Yeah, but think about it, right? If God was all loving and he wanted to stop all this evil, couldn't he just do it himself? Couldn't he just stop all the injustice and the evil in the world and snap his fingers and go, BAM! He's omnipotent, he wants it to stop, and he's capable of stopping. And he knows that it's happening, so why does it happen? Now, the simplest answer is that there's no God. It just happens. It's just how nature is. This isn't actually an argument in favor of Islam. This is an argument. I could argue that this is an argument against Islam. Sorry, dude, but depressing shit happens in the world, and that's just how it is.
Simply just believing in the Day of Judgment is belief in ultimate justice and accountability. It breathes hope and optimism into every struggling heart. In Islam, the events of the afterlife are described in such graphic detail. No other religion describes it with such conviction, and Allah calls the Day of Judgment in the Quran the ultimate reality. Muslims live to do good in preparation for death. Isn't this a powerful motivator?
Even if it were a powerful motivator, it doesn't mean it's true, dude. I'm sorry. You need to present evidence that it's true. Like, for example, I could be motivated to do good in the world so I could fly to heaven on a pink dragon. Just doesn't make it true. Even if it's a good thing to, do good and maybe give to charity, doesn't mean the pink dragon's flying me to heaven. Sorry, dude.
Throughout history, Allah has sent prophets like Abraham, Moses, and Jesus to bring people back to the worship of one God.
Well, prove to me that Abraham and Moses are real people. Well, I'm not really familiar with the historiography of Jesus. I think he was a real person. But prove to me that Abraham and Moses were real people. Without using the Quran or the Bible. Good luck, dude.
In Islam, the final prophet sent to humanity was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. What's interesting is that the way Muslims have preserved his life is above and beyond any other type of preservation in history.
Any preservation in history? Dude, we literally have Paul's sarcophagus, and we have videos of people like Hitler and Stalin and Mao. I mean, come on, dude. Like, yes, Muhammad was probably a real person. But to say we have more evidence for him than any other figure in history? Come on, dude. Come on.
You can't just make up stories about him. Narrations must be supported by the chain of narrators that goes all the way back to his time.
You absolutely can make up stories about him. Like him splitting the moon and flying to heaven on a winged stallion, or donkey. You absolutely can. I mean, yes, Muhammad was probably a real person and he fought a bunch of battles. He probably had a child bride. But to say you can't make up stories about him, you absolutely can. You can do this with all sorts of historical figures. I would argue that Jesus, you can do the same thing. Jesus may have been a real figure, but, I mean, people make up stories that he rose from the dead and turned bread into 2 pieces of bread into 5,000. He, healed people by taking mud and spitting it and putting them in their eyes. I mean, the dude used fucking magic tricks. Obviously, you can make up stories about all sorts of historical figures. Are you fucking kidding me?
The narration and narrators are then tested against strict criteria to verify that the narration can be trusted. Depending on the tests, the narration is then graded with a level of authenticity. Anything you read about the Prophet must have a grade, or else it is completely ignored. If the grade is substantially weak, Muslims instantly reject the narration. So to deny that he existed is like denying all history.
Very few people I know deny that Muhammad existed. The issue is just with the other shit, like splitting the moon in two and flying to heaven on a winged donkey. Yeah, those are bullshit. But very few people are denying that he actually existed.
Saying that, his life is so well documented because of the impact he had on his people. We know things like how he used to eat and even the position he used to sleep. It wouldn't be far from accurate to say that we know more about him than any other historical figure.
See, the issue is any historical figure. Like, dude, that's fucking bullshit. We know more about certain historical figures than Muhammad. That's the problem. You're just exaggerating how much we know about him in comparison to others.
All of this information literally invites us to study his life and make a rational decision to see if he was actually a prophet or not. There are 3 possibilities for this claim. Either he was lying, or he was mad, or he was telling the truth.
I think he was mad.
Let's break this down. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, received the first revelation from God at the age of 40. This means he lived a completely normal life for 40 years before becoming a prophet.
So?
In these 40 years, he built a reputation in his community and they literally nicknamed him the Truthful and the Trustworthy. He was known to have never told a single lie.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I mean, first off, he was a Muslim, so by definition he's lying. But, I mean, maybe he's not lying, but he was full of shit. So even if he wasn't lying,
it doesn't mean that what he saw in his revelation was actually true. And just because a large proportion of people believed him also doesn't make it true.
Think about it. 40 years of sincerity and then to suddenly come up with a monumental lie like being a prophet doesn't make any logical sense.
Who's to say he was completely sincere those 40 years? It absolutely does make sense. People claim to be, special people all the time, even after 40 years, even if it doesn't make them those special people. So you're right, it doesn't make any logical sense, which is why I don't believe it.
Later in his life, as people started joining Islam, the leaders were getting more frustrated. They offered him anything he wanted just so that he stopped preaching. If there was any time to show that he was lying, this was it. Remember, a liar always lies for a reason, but he rejected. Doesn't this show sincerity?
Sure, maybe he was honest about what he believed, but it doesn't mean that what he believed is actually true. Just because he was sincere about what he believed doesn't mean that what he believed is actually true. I mean, for example, people get persecuted all the time for having religious beliefs that are different from the main type of religion. I mean, Christians did this too, but they still preached it. Does that mean Christianity's true? No, it just means that people stand up for their beliefs even in the face of persecution.
The Prophet was also known to have so much wisdom and his character was impeccable. People used to race to serve him in any way they could. Muslims and non-Muslims turned to him for advice and he never said no to any request. These are not qualities of someone that is mad. Perhaps the biggest proof for me is that the Prophet could not read or write, had no educational background, yet was able to bring forth the Quran that remains the best literature the world has seen even after 1400 years.
So, even if he couldn't read or write, he came up with a bullshit book that contains pseudoscience, fairy tales, and stories stolen from other religions. And that's your evidence that it's the best piece of literature? What the fuck? To me, that's evidence that it's pseudoscientific bullshit that was stolen from other religions and, written by a man who didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. How do you think that?
Logically, this is enough to verify his prophethood. The Quran has literally shaken the world.
So, a book that contains pseudoscientific bullshit is enough to prove that an illiterate dude who thought he saw an angel in the year 610 is a prophet? Fucking pow!
The Prophet also told many prophecies that made no sense at the time and have only recently materialized. Listen to this. He said that the poor Arabs of the deserts would compete in building tall buildings. He said that interest will spread such that no one can escape the dust of it. He said that power and authority will be given to the wrong people. He said that sexual promiscuity would become rampant and that parents would give birth to their masters. These are only just a few examples from a plethora of authentically graded prophecies.
Okay, let's take a look at each one of your prophecies. You said that poor Arabs would compete in building tall buildings. This is not impressive, really, because this happens within many civilizations. Many civilizations, as time moves on, including Arab civilizations, will build better buildings. It's just what happens. You could do this with every other, type of people. You also said interest shall be spread so no one can escape the dust of it. Again, this isn't impressive. We all know this was going to happen. Power given to the wrong people. Again, not impressive. We knew that this was going to happen. And I'm a little bit confused about the last two. I'm not so sure how prevalent sexual promiscuity is. And I don't really know what it means for parents to give birth to their masters. Those ones are a little dicey. But then the other ones you predicted are pretty, pretty easily predictable. I mean, I could probably predict, we're going to have better new technology in 50 years. Because, I don't know, the invisible pink elephant told me so. And oh, look at that, it's new technology. But it doesn't prove that the magical pink elephant told me so and I foretold a prophecy. It just means that's essentially what was expected. The question is, why are you attributing it to God when you can just do it without it? Curious.
Amazingly, his greatness is globally recognized even by non-Muslims. For example, Michael Hart, who wrote the famous book of the top 100 most influential people in history, and he places the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as number one in his list. Other examples include Dr. Keith Moore, George Bernard Shaw, Gandhi, Thomas Carlyle, Lamartine, and the list goes on and on. Can't we logically and rationally say that he was telling the truth?
So because non-Muslims thought he was influential, that necessarily proves that he was the prophet? What? Just because people are influential doesn't mean that their ideas are true. I mean, you could say the same thing of, alchemists. You could say, oh, they were influential in the discovery of chemistry, but it doesn't mean that alchemy is true. Could mean they're a fucking bullshitter, and their wrongness essentially helped us understand the truth. By understanding, oh, that was bullshit, and hey, this makes more sense now. So, even if he was very influential, which he was, obviously, Muhammad was very influential, doesn't mean what he was saying was true.
See, the message of Islam is very simple. It is to direct all inward and outward acts of worship to Allah and Allah alone. Worship isn't just to pray. Worship is to obey and to love and to rely upon Allah more than anything or anyone else. It means to break free from society's expectations of you and to fully submit to the expectations of the Creator. In other words, you don't act a certain way or dress a certain way to please certain people. Everything you do is for the sake of Allah. This is true liberation, if you ask me. There is no leap of faith in Islam.
So to you it's liberating to believe in a God who essentially forces you to believe him, advocates for punishment, if for sometimes death, in cases of verses 47:4 and verses 9:5 for people who don't. And there's constant verses telling you that you're going to be punished in a pit of fire for all of time if you don't believe in Allah. That's liberating to you? That seems bonding. That seems like an authoritarian daddy who doesn't like anybody fucking criticizing him. How the fuck is that liberating?
Allah has given us an intellect, countless signs, and a lifetime to search for him. If after this video you now believe that there is only one God and that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was his final prophet, you have found the truth, and I would like to personally invite you to Islam.
Well, I watched the entire fucking video, and I sure as shit didn't find any fucking truth within Islam. The arguments were bad, they were pretty, unoriginal, and, yeah, I'm still convinced that Islam is bullshit. So, good job. If you guys like this video, you can click that like button, or dislike it. I probably won't fucking see it, but And click that subscribe button if you like this video and you want to see more like this. Or not, I don't know. I might be fucking lazy and not post anymore, but I don't know. Fuck it. Subscribe. Peace.